Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today, well, I'm doing a video. I mean, last video I did was a review of Exile Daenerys. Check it out. It's a very fun review to listen to. It's an interesting product. It's got its flaws, but I figured I'd better get back on what has been the notable overarching trend for the last couple of weeks, which is that D SJWs have been turning on each other absolutely viciously. And I don't know for sure why it is, but we've had a whole huge series of them, right? Like just a mass amount of these stories, of people who have, the problem first, the thing with Skyfall, or Swordfall rather, sorry, then the thing with, Adam Koval and Luke Crane. I'm forgetting half of them now because there were just so many, right? Then there was this one that has come up now that had to do with this kind of safe space for female gamers thing that was done where it turned out that a male feminist, of course, GM, subjected a group of female players to a bunch of, really pretty screwed up crap, let's put it that way, and then blamed the patriarchy for it or something. So Dolly Daly, who is Aaron the Pedantic's wife, she did a video about this on her channel that is just so spectacular that I don't think I need to try to make a video about that topic. So thanks to her for getting that one at least off my slate. So instead I'm going to talk about another one that's going on that has to do with the gay community, I guess you could say, right? In the D SJW spectrum of crap, right? And the thing is, I think I'm going to have to say there's so much of this going on right now, so fast, that it's really starting to seem to me like a serious trend. And I think we might have hit some kind of critical threshold here. I don't know for sure, maybe not, maybe just it's a series of blips and then they'll find a way to re-normalize their level of outrage. But it sure seems like SJWs are now at a point where they're just turning on each other. And I think this has to do with what I would call the RPG pundits' theory of critical mass, right? Which is that when you're talking about any movement that is based on purity, gradually that movement has to increase its standards of purity to maintain its fervor, right? And when you get to a certain threshold, then that purity has to be so extreme that literally nothing can meet its impossible standards. And therefore everybody within the purity movement will have to turn on everybody else as not pure enough, right? Not good enough. And I think that's what's possibly happening now, right? And this, what I'm going to talk to you guys about an RPG product called Queercoded. It's a very good example. I mean, I don't know, this is probably not an experience most of us have had. Right? Have you ever been a gay activist RPG designer who makes a pro-LGBT, activism-ish product for D&D that is meant to promote LGBT activism and then get attacked on absolutely all sides by the SJWs, by your fellow SJWs, I'd presume, because I would guess this person is very firmly and totally on their side, right? He probably, I'm not going to say 100% because I didn't look very profoundly into his Twitter feed or something like that, but I saw enough to see that he's very clearly, on that general side, right? He's very clearly big time, LGBT advocate in gaming. I've seen posts retweeted about, how there's discrimination and that this is, that the hobby has to get better, right? And that was part of his motivation for making this game, right? As if this hobby has brutally turned away LGBT people for all its history, right? Which is really absurd, right? Like, ask the guy who did the documentary on Blackmore, right? Like, literally the first RPG party in history, right? The first RPG party playing the game that would become D&D someday, but was not yet D&D, had a player that was a gay person. It's been gay from the beginning, dudes. Like how can you question it? But so this guy, I think, is in every way a true believer, and found himself absolutely attacked on every side because his product was supposedly not pure enough, right? And let me give you some background as to the story. The product itself is on the DM's Guild. It's not a wizard's product, but it's part of that. The DM's Guild is a part of Drive-Thru RPG for people that want to make source books specifically for 5th edition D&D, where they're allowed to use the D&D logo on it. And in exchange, D&D and Drive-Thru take most of their money, but this is the price you pay if that's what you want to make, right? And it's been very successful, right? There's been a lot of products that have hit bestseller status in the DM's Guild. A lot of 5th edition gamers that like third-party stuff, right? And so this is a product that came out for it. Just this would have now been last week, I guess. And the product is called Queercoded. Now, the term Queercoded, because I'm assuming that there might be some of my viewers, what with being deplorables, who don't know what that means. Queer coding is when in some form of media, there is an implication presented that a character is gay without explicitly, or queer, LGBT in some way, right? Without explicitly stating it, right? And this goes back to a period where, to the period before the LGBT movement became more mainstream, and went to a time when there were, codes in the production of television and film that obviously made it impossible to present a character like that openly, right? Or written or unwritten codes. And it was, from what I understand, the original intent was for creators to present, the hints, or actors in some cases, to present the hints of their own orientation to viewers in a way that other, mainly gay men, that other gay men would know what the person was hinting at, but that the audience wouldn't. But that evolved later into any situation where you're having now much more blatantly gay presenting elements, things that almost everybody in the audience, at least all the adults in the audience, would think of as a hint of queerness, without openly saying that one is queer. And sometimes this was presented for, just positive reasons. Sometimes it was presented for comedic reasons, right? So, for example, the Batman and Robin, the Adam West Batman series was filled to the absolute brim with queer-coded elements, and that was largely done for campy purposes, sort of. It was to joke, not so much about. I think fundamentally it was a joke about the genre, right? Because there's obviously a subtext of kind of, or there has historically been people presenting that there's been a subtext of gay presentation within Batman and Robin almost from the start, right? And then sometimes it's done to for the purpose of trans, and this is where it can be kind of negative, where it's presented as a way to express some kind of moral failing without explicitly stating it, right? So there was a criticism about Disney films that a lot of the villains in Disney movies are kind of queer-coded, and that's meant to show how corrupt they are or something like that, But then there's also been a long tradition, at least since the 80s, if not earlier, in gay activism, to turn that around and then present that villain or that villainy in it's a kind of like reclaim it, right? So these characters that are clearly villains in the basic presentation of a movie, like The Lion King or the Little Mermaid, Scar and Ursula, can be kind of reclaimed by gay people as something that they're putting up as icons, right? So that's the meaning of that. And this whole explanation is important because the book, Queercoded, the D&D source book, Queercoded from DM's Guild, is a product that looks at a whole group of iconic D&D villains and presents them as gay characters openly, right? So among the ones listed there, you have Tiamat, you have Vecna, gay Vecna, you have Jiraxel, or however you pronounce that. That's a villain from the 5th edition. I don't care about him. And then for some reason, there's also Elminster in there. Elminster is not typically presented as a villain, so you kind of have to wonder, why he's included in a list of villains. Though some Forgotten Realms people might look at, if you give an honest look at Elminster, you might say, yeah, maybe he is a villain, So it's understandable. Maybe that's part of the joke itself, right? And of course, Elminster in the original kind of presentation of not the Baudelarized presentation that he got from TSR and from Wizards, but in the original intentions of Ed Greenwood, if you've seen Ed Greenwood's writings about Elminster, Elminster is basically a pansexual, he's kind of like the Captain Kirk of the Forgotten Realms, right? He's always looking for someone to do, right? And in his case, he doesn't really care too much about what it is, what gender or species it is even, So in a way, that's a clever thing to put in there, sort of, okay? Now, the book itself is these villains. They're presented with background stuff and special abilities. They're basically rewritten, and elements of their personality, their stats and their special abilities and encounters you can have with them, and all that sort of stuff are done in a way that puts a queer spin onto the character, right? And it's all done with an art style that is very flashy, kind of, the over-the-top sort of bright-colored sort of thing you might find in a pride parade sort of style, right? And the characters are redrawn. Elminster is redrawn as basically, he's all made up, and he's got this very glamorous looking wizard robes, and like a kind of almost a Liberace sort of thing, right? So it's in a way the product is campy as well, right? And it was meant to be a way to celebrate LGBT D&D players, and kind of to I think reclaim these villains. Though I don't think any of these characters, honestly, except Elminster's ironically the only one that comes out even close. I've never seen any evidence for the characters that this person chose to make the queer-coded characters, that they were ever originally queer-coded, right? Like Tiamat, I don't think is a queer character, right? Vecna, I really don't think is a queer character originally, right? Now they've reinterpreted them as such, so okay, that's fine. And then what happened is that when this person released it, they had created a lot of hype. A lot of the SJWs at the time were promoting this book as super important, and already kind of getting ready to pre-condemn any of the evil people of the alt-right OSR who would dare to say that such a book is bad, right? And then a funny thing happened, right? Like, they had released, I don't know anyone from the OSR who said it was bad. There might be somebody who associates the OSR who said it, but I don't remember anyone who said it. Nobody really paid much attention to it outside of the SJW sphere, right? But the SJWs themselves immediately turned on the book. Immediately, right? And they attacked it on two completely different fronts, right? On the one side, this guy got hugely attacked, criticized all over Twitter about how this product just wasn't gay enough, right? Like there was not enough gayness in it. I'm not exactly sure how that, like how would they have made it more gay? They criticized that some of the characters, the gayness was just purely superficial, and maybe that's a legitimate criticism to a certain extent, because like I said, if you've got like Tiamat, making a gay version of Tiamat, when Tiamat is a monster and not really a, and there's never been a lot of like element. I mean, Tiamat besides that it's a very changed version, but the D&D version is very changed, but it's actually a character of myth, right? Tiamat and Bahamut are figures from ancient myth, and they're meant to kind of represent yin and yang, right? So it's a particularly complex character to queerify when it's meant to present like the whole idea of masculine versus feminine, order versus chaos, right? Like all the stuff Jordan Peterson talks about, right? So that's a tough one to make, believably gay, right? But there was the argument was that it was insufficiently gay. But then the other argument, and the one that got even more traction, was that it was the wrong kind of gay, because it was a kind of gay that was entertaining and kind of fun and transgressive in an expressive way, right? It was in a way kind of the gayness. Visually, it was kind of like the gayness of Liberace, right? It was this kind of campy gay product. And then, in terms of presentation, it was that edgy, humorous, but inviting kind of, comedy of what you see, like from Scott Thompson in Kids in the Hall, right? Like any Gen Xer, at least certainly in Canada, but I think also in the United States, right, will have had a lot of their their earliest exposures to gay culture watching Kids in the Hall and watching Scott Thompson and his characters, which I think if Scott Thompson existed today, he exists, he's alive. But if the characters that he made were presented today in a comedy, there would be howls of outrage and calls for his canceling, right? Because it's the wrong kind of gay, it's not the right kind of gay anymore, right? And so there's an argument being presented that this product is not serious enough, right? It's not mean enough to non-gay people, right? It's not exclusive enough. It's not saying this is for us, not for you, right? And its humor is in some way the wrong type of humor because it's too universal and too approachable, right? And it risks presenting gay people as silly rather than as tragic victims / activists, which is what all gay people have to be now, and that's really sad when you think about it, right? Like that this is what they want. Something that they want something to not be approachable, to not be accessible to non-LGBT people, and to demand that it be tragic, victimizing, and that it refuses to be funny in a proper and universal sense, right? It's fundamentally part of the problem of what's going on. And I mean, another problem is that it was, gay males are now almost kicked out of, they're almost now considered the straight white man of the LGBT movement, right? Because, they're too privileged, I guess, there is certainly something that has shifted in the LGBT movement. I mean, I'm not LGBT, right? But I had a lot of friends in the 90s who were, I still have friends today who are, here and abroad. I always like to live in the middle of cities, and when you live in the middle of cities, you live close, if you don't live in you can either live in like Heroin Alley or you can live near the gay town, right, of the city. So I was always kind of close whatever city I lived in. I was in that zone, and I would be in the same cafes, because I like to go to cafes, and so there there was always people that I met and that I befriended that were a part of that community. And that community changed very radically from the 90s into the 2000s, and I imagine has changed even more now, right? But the one kind of enormous shift that happened, I think, was over the subject of gay marriage. Because even though obviously everybody recognized that there was an injustice in the idea of government benefits being granted for marriage, that only certain people could go into honestly, right? Because I mean, obviously any man and woman could get married, but if it wasn't sincere, then it was a kind of fraud, right? That there was an injustice that was available for certain types of people, but not others, right? And beyond that, there was this idea of the monopolizing of the concept of marriage to people who can only define marriage as one man and one woman, right? Now, whatever you might think about it in the audience, it was something that was obviously in the LGBT movement and in liberalism in general seen as there was definite unfairness there, right? But the shift of the argument for gay activism changed completely because of the gay marriage issue. Because before that, gay people were about being transgressive, unique, expressive, and there was tremendous amounts of humor in what they were doing, right? Because they were, they were fighting for how they chose to live to be seen as acceptable, right? For them, right? And then the movement kind of changed into this situation of trying to have everybody in society see them as normal and no different from anybody else in society, right? Which, that doesn't sound bad either, right? Except for the fact that it means that you then have to kind of repress the whole side that is about that kind of campy, transgressive fun. And you have to change it into, a type of activism, right? So it's no longer about just being yourself. It's about, this is our culture that we will now fight for in the public, right? And that it's also it is part of our normality, and you have to act, you have to fit in within this particular mold of how we're going to define it, right? Like it suddenly became much more repressive internally, that you could be the wrong type of gay now, right? Inside the movement, from that point onwards, and in a way, this Queercoded product, when I was looking through it, I immediately saw, okay, this is very much the kind of Scott Thompson-ish kind of humor and kind of presentation and style. And I didn't actually find that there was anything really wrong with it. It's not a product. I thought of it as a kind of a silly product, but I think the problem is that the people that are attacking it would be mad that someone like me would find nothing particularly wrong with it, right? Like that it's perfectly okay as a product. They demanded, they wanted to demand that this product be something that is more hateful to everybody that isn't them, so that then there are more people that will be outraged, so that then they can claim to be victims, and it's not happening, and therefore you failed, it's not gay enough. And of course there's one final thing that they attacked it for, is that apparently the book has no trans characters. How dare this gay man who is therefore the straight white male of the LGBT movement forget about trans people, right? Because every book has to be about trans people now, right? And so you can see how like this level of intolerance within the SJW movement is just growing and growing and growing to this fever pitch of nothing ever being good enough anymore, right? Like it's if they can go after the big book of gay D&D characters, they're going to go after anything, And there's nothing that meets the standard for them anymore. And I hesitate because there might be some kind of moment of things leveling out to a new plateau of stupidity on their part, where, you know, they will now say, okay, everything below this line that is now much higher than it used to be is now, you know, white supremacy. Everything, you know, if you're, you know, Scott Thompson is white supremacy, and Liberace, all that is white supremacy, all that is evil, and then everything above it is going to be okay, and we're going to proceed from there, and they'll you know, it's just going to be another turn of the spiral where they get another 6 months of viability before they all start attacking each other again, right? Or maybe not. Maybe this is it. Maybe they're really getting to where they're no longer able to tolerate anything and are going to fall apart. At least inside this hobby, maybe, you know, because things seem to go at different paces in different parts of the culture war. We'll have to see. Anyways, you know, Queercoded. If you know, I don't know if I can recommend it, but I don't think there's anything bad about it existing, and I certainly don't think it's, you know, there's no way that, like, I can't imagine a scenario where there would be a justification from anyone for why this book should be cancelled as such. And yet there are people that have called for it to be cancelled, and the people calling for it to be cancelled, as far as I've seen, you might be able to show me one or two dudes who say otherwise, but I haven't seen them. Everybody I've seen calling for this book to be cancelled is on the SJW left. So I guess that's it for today. If you like this video, please share it. Please like the video. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And, you know, feel free to share this video anywhere where you think someone will find it interesting, or anywhere where you think it's, you know, going to piss people off, because let's argue the controversy, right? And if you want to support me, then you could just toss money at me through Patreon or PayPal. There's links in the description below. But you could also, if you want, support me by purchasing my products. You know, stuff like Arrows of Indra, the first RPG to ever feature a trans character on the cover, or Dark Albion, which probably doesn't have any trans characters in it at all, because, you know, it's based on 15th century England. There are LGBT characters in the Dark Albion book. I'll mention that, because there were LGBT people in history in that period that, you know, that existed. The Old School Companion, which is a collection of stuff you can put into your campaign, be it Lion and Dragon or any OSR book or any D&D book, to make it more medieval authentic, to add medieval authenticity, including magic that is based on actual medieval grimoires, stuff on the aristocracy, stuff on medieval authentic presentations of elves and fairyland, and you know, trade caravans and courtly events and all sorts of stuff, all based on authentic sources. And if you're, you know, if the big books are too much, a step too far for you at this moment, check out my RPG Pundit Presents series, which is 104 now books that are PDF books priced between 99 cents to $4.99. And they have they cover all kinds of topics: monsters, magic items, random tables, encounters, adventures, settings, you know, city guides, all sorts of stuff, mechanics, classes, everything. You're going to find something out of those 104 books that you think might be interesting for you to add to your repertoire of stuff to use in your campaigns. And it's, you know, it's the price of buying me a coffee, right? And at the same time, you're getting something for yourself. So I think that's great, right? Like, feel free to throw money at me directly, but I like it when people buy my stuff, because I'm a capitalist, right? So support me in that sense, and you get something back too. We're helping each other. I guess that's it for today. Be sure to share the video, please. And currently smoking Maestro de Paya Bent Apple plus Fox & Sons Campanile.